We all think we know Abraham Lincoln, right? The great emancipator, the president who held the nation together. But what if I told you his own family couldn't even hold on to their own home? Seriously, this isn't some dusty old footnote in a history book. It's this incredible story of legal ghosts and family trauma that didn't just haunt a future president. It literally reshaped a huge part of modern America. And it all kicks off with one simple question.
So if you're like me, you probably learned in school that the Lincolns packed up and left Kentucky to get away from slavery. And, that was definitely part of the picture. But it wasn't the main reason, not even close. The real story, the one that truly drove them out, is buried in a pile of old court documents and land deeds, and it is way more dramatic. The thing that really forced the Lincoln family to flee Kentucky was just this relentless, soul-crushing legal trauma. They were absolutely haunted, not by, supernatural ghosts, but by the legal ghosts of terrible paperwork and a totally broken system that kept stealing their land right out from under them again and again.
And hey, you don't have to take my word for it. Lincoln himself wrote about it. He said the family moved, and I quote, partly on account of slavery, but chiefly on account of the difficulty in land titles. Chiefly. That one word, right there, changes everything we think we know about his childhood. It was the land titles that were the main problem.
So what exactly were these difficulties he was talking about? Well, this wasn't just one bad break or a bit of bad luck. It was a pattern. It was a series of 3 distinct disasters that just pushed his father, Thomas Lincoln, right to the breaking point.
Okay, just look at this. It's a relentless, tragic cycle. First, at Milk Creek Farm, there's a survey mistake, and poof, 38 acres they had already paid for just vanish. Gone. So then, they move to Sinking Spring, and get this is Abraham Lincoln's actual birthplace. They pay $200 for it, and only then do they find out someone else has a prior claim on it. They fight in court for 5 years, and then they're evicted. Lost the farm, lost the money. Finally, at Knob Creek, some land shark shows up and sues them, and here's the real kicker. Thomas Lincoln actually wins the case, but the legal fees, the years of stress, it just broke him. You can see how this would wear anyone down.
And that's the part that's so tragic about this. Thomas Lincoln wasn't some lazy guy or bad with money. He was a hardworking man who did his best to follow the rules. He did everything right, but he was fighting this invisible enemy. He was defeated by a system that was fundamentally completely broken.
So what was this system? You gotta ask, why was owning land in Kentucky so chaotic? Well, the answer is in the bizarre way they measured property. It was basically a recipe for disaster. The culprit was an old system called metes and bounds. Now, instead of a nice, neat grid like we think of today, property lines were defined by whatever was around. Your farm's border might be from the big oak tree over to that jagged rock, then follow the creek. I mean, it sounds kind of charming, right? But what happens when that tree falls down, or the creek changes its course after a flood? Yeah, you get total chaos.
This system was an absolute nightmare. The boundaries were hopelessly vague. And to make it 1,000 times worse, Virginia, which used to control the area, had handed out land warrants for way more land than even existed. This meant you had endless overlapping claims, which created the perfect hunting ground for these land sharks to swoop in and sue hardworking farmers like Thomas Lincoln. It led to this constant, nagging fear that historians actually call title anxiety. Now look at this comparison. It is just night and day. On the left, you've got the Kentucky chaos. Landmarks, vague lines, and high legal risk. On the right, you have Indiana, which used the new Federal Land Survey. It was just a simple, logical grid, all pre-surveyed by the government. No overlapping claims. It promised something that must have sounded like a miracle to Thomas Lincoln. A clear title. A piece of paper that guaranteed the land you bought was actually truly yours. And that promise, that dream of finally getting a clear title is what drove the Lincolns to make their move. In 1816, they packed up everything and they left the legal chaos of Kentucky behind for good. I mean, what a long, painful journey. For more than a decade, they were trapped in this maddening cycle. Buy land, clear it, farm it, improve it, and then have it all threatened or just stolen away by a lawsuit. So that move to Indiana, it wasn't just a change of address, it was an escape. Okay, now here is where this whole story from the 1800s comes crashing right into our world today. Because this very specific, very personal family trauma didn't just end up shaping a president, It helped create an entire industry that protects millions of us every single day.
That industry is called title insurance. Now, it wasn't formally invented until 1876, after Lincoln's death, but his family's story is basically Exhibit A. It's the perfect historical case study for why this thing had to be created in the first place.
This is the really incredible part. Just think about every single one of those disasters that hit the Lincolns. That hidden lien that cost them Abe Lincoln's birthplace. Boom. Today, title insurance provides lien protection. What about the survey error that just wiped a chunk of their farm off the map? Boom, modern policies ensure survey accuracy. And those absolutely crushing legal fees from the lawsuit they actually won? You guessed it, title insurance pays for your legal defense. Every single one of Thomas Lincoln's nightmares is now solved by a specific, modern protection. So when you or I buy a house today and get title insurance, we are literally buying a product that was conceptually born from the legal nightmares of the Lincoln family. This protection we take for granted exists because a future president's father was evicted from his home, lost his life savings, and had his spirit broken by a system that just didn't work. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other quiet, forgotten struggles from the past are still echoing today? What other invisible systems that protect us every single day were shaped by some family story that we've long forgotten? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.